Hola! This is my Inspired Hex I built last year. You might not recognise it, as I think I only made 2 videos with it. There's a few reasons why, but honestly, one big one was the colour. Now, I like bright bikes, but I've never liked yellow bikes. Look back through my 27 years of riding, and the only yellow bike I've ever had was the Giant Trials Team retro build, and that was only a temporary project. It's difficult for Inspired to keep coming up with colours, and I'm sure plenty of people like this yellow, but I just couldn't get stoked on it. And if I'm not stoked on a bike, I simply don't want to ride it as much. Sorry Inspired, but it's the truth. Fortunately for me, Inspired have released a new colour for 2024, and today I'm going to see if I'm going to have a grumpy or happy year. The cute thief is here too, but a lot of this bike is from sponsors, so he's just here for moral support and to put everything in a box for me. No opposable thumbs, no problems. It's not just me this bike has to please. This guy's a harsh critic. I mean, just look at him. If you want proof, keep an eye out for the scratches on my right hand. That's the price I pay for swapping his whiskers to another brand. But anyway, no more messing about. What colour do we have this year? It's green. Well, kinda. Depending on the angle and the light, it actually changes to purple. This is really cool and should be really nice in bright sunshine. Shame that's a little rarer in Scotland though. However, being honest, I automatically worry about how this bike will stand out in videos and photos. I like bright colours as they tend to pop more and don't melt into the background as much. Will this stand out, or will it look boring in my vlogs? That said, I thought the same thing about the dark red frame from a few years ago, and looking back, I actually really liked that. This is definitely cool though, and I've no doubt it would be a great looking bike, and nicer than the yellow one. Now, if you're new to street trials, this is Inspired's 26-inch model, hence the name Hex. It has all the mod cons a rider might need, like this neat tapered head tube. Although, it still reminds me of a Sayaga's nose a little bit. What do you think? Down in its nether regions, it has a neat shell and yoke design. It's light, stiff, and I've never cracked one, and this is often a weak spot in trials frames. Inspired also boasts the best disc mount in the biz. I mean, look how neat this is. Disc mounts can often be a weak point due to how harsh trials is, but I'm yet to crack one here, there, or anywhere. Bringing up the rear, my dear, is a 135 by 12mm through axle for all your stiffness duties. And next to that is a tensioner mount for Inspired's low profile model, or maybe a sneaky homemade one. One thing that's great to see is faced mounting points. Not many brands do that. So yeah, overall a great frame with some neat details and 26-inch wheels because they're just better. Now let's see what parts will be adorning it. As is tradition, we start with the headset first. My headset tool has seen better days but still wants to be involved, and who am I to deny it? Fortunately for everyone, and especially me, this frame takes drop-in style bearings, so no cups are needed to be rammed in. This feels like taking your child to feed a horse. I would take my own, but I don't have any childs. Once we've finished petting the rest of the animals at the petting zoo, I can fit the fork. This is the matching Inspired Hex fork. Not only does it match the colour, but it matches the neat deets too. They're less blurry in real life, or at least I hope they are, but this is another example of the changing colour. I call it cuttlefish paint, because they can change their colour too. My camera couldn't keep its eyes off the frame, but here in the foreground is the tapered steerer. Long gone are the days of snapping steerers with this beast. It also includes this sweet integrated top cap. It's designed in a way that allows a cable or hose to pass through, but still be tightened with a 6mm Allen key. Down its short, stubby legs, not that I'm body shaming, is another neat disc mounting. Then, to wrap things up, is a 100 by 50mm through axle. Inspired actually offered the top spec bike with a 20mm axle, but I requested a 15. I personally don't notice any extra stiffness with a bigger 20mm, and as you can see here, the teardrop shape has to be properly aligned when fitting the front wheel, which adds a bit of extra complexity. Time is money and all that. The 15mm is simpler, can be fitted from either side of the fork, and there's more hub options. Sometimes smaller is better. Here's one for your OGs. Who remembers what video this headset spacer is from and why it has a slot cut in it? I'm going to reuse the stem from a yellow hex because it has these almost colour-coded atomic number 22 bolts, and that's as good a reason as any. It's 90mm with a 35-degree rise to help raise the front due to the shorter fork and higher bottom bracket. It's in effect a 75mm stem with a load of spacers. Oh, this just won't do. I'm not having another bike with spacers above the stem. So I'll mark this and I'll take it over to my trimming zone for a short back and sides. Man, I love these Unia tools. Just needs the edges smoothing over and we're good to go. What? I swear I cut this down. Well, I guess it would help if I actually fitted the lower bearing. By the way, have I told you I'm considering opening my garage to bike repairs? Don't all rush at once. That's betterer. Some clips for the gram. As usual, I'll be running the Inspired high-rise bar. It has some rise and many sweeps, which I find comfy, and I've never snapped one, which is nice. That's the sports bar done. Now let's give it some wheels. I found this hub sitting on my old bike. It didn't seem to be doing much, so I yoinked it for this build. It's an inch 9 Hydra hub and is good at spinning. Now it was all over the papers, but if you didn't see the news, let me break it to you now. Are you sitting down? I no longer ride for light bicycle carbon rims. Sad but true. We're left on good terms though, and I still think these are great rims. However, I won't be using them for this build. That's because these are hookless rims. They work perfectly with the tighter tolerances of tubeless tyres, but I did find that some non-tubeless tyres were a little baggy and actually blew off the rim when running tubeless. It was rare, but it did happen at 2 shows last year. So for this bike, I'm going back to aluminium and a rim with more standard hooked bead. It's heavier and narrower and I might cry, but if it's reliable with all tyres, then it's worth it. My favourite bike shop, Tarty Bikes, helped me with some spokes, so now it's time to get some building done. If wheel building seems like black magic to you, then fear not. Just like me, it's more simple than you think. I've got multiple tutorial videos on wheel builds, which I'll link down below. I'll assume you go binge watch them, so don't need to see me build this one, so let's skip forward a little. All done. Well, almost. Needs these damn hole sealing. I know it's really tempting to just go get some atomic number 4 sealant, but believe me, it's messier than you can imagine. Fortunately, Schwalbe make this tape that does the job even better. It's also a fashion statement. If places can charge $588 for a coloured zip tie, then this must be worth thousands. Must have added at least 100 quid to the value of this wheel now. Schwalbe are mad for selling them at just £20. Unlike me, this never gets old. Still needs some air though, but that's great. It means I get to use my compressor, which is perhaps the most satisfying thing I own. Now you probably read the great big names on the tyre already, but this year I'll be mostly riding the Racing Ralph. On the front at least. The back one's a secret for now. Ironically, after going on about changing rims to suit non-tubeless tyres, I'm using a tubeless tyre. I fancied a more all-round tyre, and having used these models before, I know they have a very good compromise of grip, rolling resistance and weight. It won't be quite as good as the Billy Bonkers in skate parks or pump tracks, but it'll be better for the more trialsy stuff. I've modified this slightly though. I trimmed the shoulder nub slightly to give a rounder profile to help with carving spins. Not a huge change, but should be slightly better for my needs. The wheel turned out great though. Not heavy at all really, and it feels well balanced. Although this might upset the balance a little. The wheel is thirsty, so I feed it some wheel milk. The cool thing about tubeless tyres is that it's sealed without this, but there's loads of Neds in Glasgow who might want to stab my tyres, and this will help scare them off. Blink and you'll miss it, and rotor fitted. 203mm for many power. I guess I should probably do something similar for the back of the bike. The hub is similar to the front one, other than being wider, and with a smaller 12mm axle. Oh, and having a 690 engagement free hub. They're the same colour and brand, I guess. Do you really need 690 engagements though? I only have one with Jane, and that's enough. The rim just isn't similar to the front. They're identical twins. And just like that, it's built. Now, let's dive into the exciting world of inserts. Previously on this channel you're watching, I raved on about these rim pack inserts and ran them front and rear. Now, I still think these are the best inserts on the market, but I'm going to try this bike without them. I figured now I'm on alloy rims, I don't need to worry as much about damaging them. I can always insert the inserts back in if I start to dent the rims. Now, this name is quite ironic, as I actually cut all the knobs off. It should be called the knobless Nick now. Apologies to Schwalbe, but in my defence, street trials is a small niche with its own weird needs. I fancied trying this tyre for a few reasons. Firstly, it's a slightly softer compound, and secondly, it's slightly heavier. The downside was the tyre had quite an aggressive pattern, as you can see from this Virgin one, which would have had a lot of drag and feel quite slow. It also had a squarer profile than I'd like, making carving for spins feel weird. My drastic cutting has rounded the profile and made it faster rolling. Now I have a fast, grippy, slightly more damped tyre. Or at least I hope I do. And speaking of damped tyres, lighter tyres have to be run at higher pressures to avoid folding or squirming. That makes the bike feel harsher on the body and I also find the bike harder to hop. A slightly heavier tyre absorbs more vibrations, but can also be run slightly lower PSI for a smoother ride without folding. I'm hoping this modified tyre will make my bike kinder on my 40-year-old body, and despite weighing more, I hope it will let me hop higher too. I guess I'll find out when I get this thing built and ridden. Right, well, I guess I went on about that tyre for quite a while, didn't I? Let's change the subject to gears. Or should I say gear? I'm only running one gear on this bike, and half of it is this 18-tooth cog. I added some spacers and a lock ring, and it's good to go. A matching 203mm rotor then fell on, and this wheel is begging to be fitted. Ladies and gents, we have a rolling chassis. But let's make it a pedaling chassis. Time for the external arse bearing. You blinked again, didn't you? Well, with that fitted, here's the crank hose. The Shimano XT from my last bike. Hey, if they're not broken, then let's keep trying. I've actually been really impressed with these. They're 165mm and are pretty light, but they shrugged off everything I've thrown at them for the couple of rides I've had. Even the 22th Inspired sprocket and bash cooker combo is still looking fresh-ish. It's a little grubby, isn't it? Let's sort that out. Just like me after my bi-monthly shower, it looks quite nice under all that grime. The bike's fairly stealthy so far, and this black KMC chain will continue the theme. I forgot how cool black chains are. It's a bit long though, and that's what she said, so I checked the length and trim it down. Still a little baggy though. Time to add some tension. No, not that kind of tension. This kind. My homemade titanium leaf spring tensioner I made about 5 years ago. It's still going strong and is the best thing I've ever made. Strong, gives a good tension, and is tucked out the way and hard to hit. Perfect. I've had a few people ask me if I'd make some and sell them. The short answer is no. I'm simply too lazy. However, my pal Vincent is doing a limited run of them, which will be even better than mine. Details in the description if you want one. Right, well, I've made it go. Now let's make it stop. And of course, I'm going to be using haze brakes. Although instead of the Dominion A4s, I'm trying something else this time. This is the Dominion T2. I've used the A2 in the past. This is the lighter version with atomic number 22 hardware and extra material moved on the caliper. The lever is mostly the same but has been upgraded to an atomic number 6 blade, or carbon to you layman folk. It lacks the tool-free adjustment on the normal levers, but it's pimp and that's what counts. I'm yet to break a haze lever and I'm hoping this will prove to be just as reliable. This fork has mounts for 180mm rotors, so first I add an adapter to suit 203mm. If you've never set up a haze brake before, first you push the caliper all the way towards the hub, nip down the bolts, then use the grub screws to pull the caliper over until it's centered on the rotor. It's so easy. I always like to adjust the banjo angle too to give a neater hose route. If done carefully, no fluid is lost. To continue keeping things neat, I'll thread the hose up through the steerer and trim it to length. To make life easier, I remove the top cap to make a big an exit for the hose as possible. Take a deep breath, it's going in. I very accurately measure how much I need to cut off, and then give it a snip. This tool makes fitting barbs an absolute breeze. And now it's ready to be reinstalled. That all seemed to go pretty smoothly, almost too smoothly. I'm suspicious. So yeah, I forgot to put the top cap back on. I always do this. Never mind, it's easy enough to do. Also, Hays get bonus points for having a small rubber shroud cover. It easily fits through the small hole of the top cap, and not many brands let you do that. Now, if I did this all right, I shouldn't need to bleed the brake. And I don't. It feels solid. It's the same process for the rear brake now. Adapter on first, then the caliper, nip it down, center it, and clamp fully. Again, the hose is about a mile long, so I'll trim it to 1 kilometre instead. Nice and metric. Again, my superior skills mean I don't need to bleed this brake either. Happy, happy, joy, joy. By the way, if you're wondering about power, these may not be 4-pot brakes, but they still have big pistons. The power is about the same as an A4, and actually often 4-pot brakes have slight pad towing due to the front pistons moving fractionally before the rear. This gives more modulation. 2-pot brakes don't have any towing, so often have more bite. I guess I'll find out if that's true soon. Right, so I've made it go and I've made it stop. Let's make it go even more with some big platforms. It was really tempting to put these bright pinned pedals on for my previous build, but they were a little bit clashy. So instead I have these black guys I'll use. These are a few years old now, but still smooth as ever, and I'm yet to lose any pins. That 5-year warranty is looking safe so far. It's all good making it go and stop and go again, but the vital part is being able to lounge. It's chair time. I'm sticking with the Inspired seat clamp because it's black and I got it for free. And also free was this Inspired tripod seat and post. This was also on my last bike and is a little grubby. Maybe I should have asked for a new one. It's a cool chair though, small, stealth and fairly light. My hands need chairs too, and I'm breaking protocol by swapping from my favourite ODI grips to these DMR Death grips. I've heard they're good, so I got a slim soft pair. Plus, these Galaxy ones look pretty sweet. I'm also a big fan of the paper packaging too. Nice one, DMR. I do have one question though. Well, that answered that. Right, well, that's done. It's definitely more stealthy than my yellow one. I'd go as far to say it's almost classy. And I'll be honest, I think it actually needs to be a bit more rowdy. Let's do something about that. There we go. I really think this needed a bit of colour, and this Bergtech Nebula chair has much colour indeed. It's a little bit taller and heavier than the Inspired one, but I think it's worth it. This is now my bike. So yeah, now we're done. Time to make sure things are tight and straight and see how it rides. Oh, but first, if you're interested to know the weight, it's right bang on a nice round 9.915 kilos, which isn't too shabby considering the heavier rims, saddle and steel rear sprocket. It manuals pretty well, quite similar to my last Hex. In fact, just general rear wheel control is almost exactly like it. Its 360 front pivot's the same. and downside foot jam whips, tail whips the same. And it backwards manual's the same too. Let's be honest, of course it rides the same as my last bike. The geometry and the contact points are all the same as before. But that's great, my last bike rode nicely and I didn't want to change things up too much for this one. I just hope my ongoing chronic neck pain lets me ride this bike a little bit more this year. It's street trials and this style of bike that particularly aggravates it. It's a rare day in Scotland with the sun shining, so I can show you the metallic effect in the paint, and very nice. So what do you think? I know from comments online that people are pretty keen on this colour. Fellow Inspired team riders Ben and Joachim are both riding this colour Hex and their bikes look sweet, though I think mine looks the sweetest. I think I'm going to have a happy year. But to be honest, the only opinion that really matters is the cute critics. Time for an inspection. Do I need to make any changes? Is this the best Inspired I've ever built? Cool, well, if he had thumbs, I'm sure he'd put them up. The cute thief is appeased. I'll have to see how I get on with the modified tyres and new brakes, but my first impressions are actually really good. Big thanks to Schwalbe, Hayes, Pinned, and of course Inspired for the ongoing support. I'll get filming in the streets soon, and I'll also ride the bike. Get subscribed and hit the notification button to make sure you don't miss it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.